This true account delves into the life and crime of Charles Manson, the infamous leader of the Manson family cult, responsible for a series of gruesome murders in the late 1960s. Charles had a troubled and turbulent early life that played a pivotal role in the formation of his cult. Born on November 12, 1934, in Cincinnati, Ohio, Manson's upbringing was marred by poverty, neglect, and instability. Manson's mother, Kathleen Maddox, was just 16 years old when she gave birth to him. She was a troubled woman who struggled with criminal behavior and alcoholism. His father, Colonel Scott, was not a part of his life, leaving Charles without a stable male role model. Manson's early years were marked by a lack of familial support and constant shuffling between relatives and foster homes. He spent much of his youth in and out of correctional facilities, starting at a very young age. By the time he was 13, he had already accumulated a record of thefts and burglaries. His frequent run-ins with the law exposed him to a criminal subculture, which further influenced his worldview. As Manson grew older, he honed his skills as a charismatic manipulator. He spent time in prison for various offenses, where he learned to manipulate and control other inmates. In the late 1950s, he began dabbling in music, briefly befriending the Beach Boys' Dennis Wilson, who introduced him to the Los Angeles music scene. It was during this time in the 1960s that Manson started to amass a following, primarily composed of young, impressionable women who were attracted to his magnetic personality. He used a combination of psychological manipulation and the counterculture movements of the era, particularly the hippie movement and the pursuit of communal living, to gather his followers. Manson preached a bizarre ideology that mixed elements of racism, environmentalism, and apocalyptic beliefs, which he used to control and indoctrinate his followers. He convinced them that he was a messiah figure, and they began to refer to him as Charlie. Under his influence, the Manson family cult lived on a remote ranch in California and engaged in drug use and free love. Meanwhile, Charles Manson had become increasingly obsessed with the idea of starting a race war he called the Helter Skelter. Manson believed that this war would be triggered by a series of brutal murders. Manson ordered his followers, particularly Charles Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Linda Kasabian, to carry out the gruesome act. Sharon Tate, a promising young actress who was 8 months pregnant at the time, was married to film director Roman Polanski. On the evening of August 8, 1969, Tate was at her home located at Cielo Drive in the upscale neighborhood of Benedict Canyon. Her guests that night included her friend and former lover Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, heiress to the Folgers' coffee fortune, and Wojciech Frykowski, a Polish writer and film producer. The nominated Manson family members, armed with knives and firearms, drove to the house on Cielo Drive. They scaled a fence and entered the property. Inside, they encountered Jay Sebring, who was shot and stabbed multiple times. Abigail Folger and Wojciech Frykowski were also brutally attacked and murdered. Sharon Tate pleaded for her life and that of her unborn child, but she too was brutally stabbed to death. Before leaving, the Manson family wrote the word "pig" in Tate's blood on the front door. The following morning, the bodies were discovered by Tate's housekeeper, who called the police. The crime scene was one of unimaginable brutality, and it sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry and society at large. It wasn't until a few months later that Manson and his followers were arrested, initially on unrelated charges. Susan Atkins, while in police custody for a different crime, bragged to her cellmates about her involvement in the Tate murders. This information eventually led to the arrest of the Manson family. The trial began in June 1970 and turned into a media circus. Charles Manson and his followers were charged with the murders. Manson, though not present at the actual crime scene, was charged with orchestrating the murders. During the trial, Manson exhibited erratic and unpredictable behavior, which only fueled his notoriety. The prosecution, led by Vincent Bugliosi, presented a compelling case, and the defense's attempts to blame Manson's actions on his followers were largely unsuccessful. The trial concluded in January 1971, and on January 25th, Manson and his co-defendants were found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. In 1972, the California Supreme Court invalidated the death penalty, which commuted Manson and his followers' sentences to life imprisonment. Manson spent the rest of his life in various California prisons, including the notorious San Quentin and Corcoran State Prison. Manson remained a highly controversial and infamous figure, attracting attention from the media, filmmakers, and true crime enthusiasts. He continued to exhibit bizarre and manipulative behavior while in prison. He maintained a group of devoted followers who communicated with him through letters and visits. Charles Manson's notoriety persisted, and he was repeatedly denied parole during his many hearings. On November 19, 2017, Charles Manson died of natural causes at the age of 83 in Kern County Hospital in California. His death marked the end of an era, but the legacy of his horrific crimes continue to fascinate and disturb people to this day. The Manson family and the Tate murders have left a lasting scar on the collective memory of American society. The brutality, the mind control, and the sheer insanity that surrounded these events serve as a chilling reminder of the dark depths of human nature and the vulnerability of individuals who can be swayed by charismatic and dangerous leaders.
Thank you for joining us on another chilling journey through the darkest corners of human history. If you've enjoyed exploring these chilling case files with us, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to stay updated on our latest tales of intrigue and terror. And remember, the truth is often stranger than fiction, and the world is full of mysteries waiting to be unraveled. So, until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and never stop seeking the truth. This is Chilling Case Files. Goodbye.